Hi TerraTube, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. I have a unboxing and first impressions video to share. You'll know from the title of the video that this is going to be the Illuminated Earth Oracle by Claire Mack. It's very unusual for me that I would have two very quick succession unboxing videos like this, and even kind of more unusual that they would both be Oracle decks. I have a lot fewer Oracle decks than I do tarot, but with March being my birth month, I treated myself a little bit more than I usually would. And this deck had been on my radar for a long time as one that I was interested in, went kind of back and forth, and I'm really glad to have picked it up. The deck is actually on Kickstarter right now for a second edition, so I'll link both Claire's Etsy shop where you can get the deck and the Kickstarter as well. So I will say also just a thank you to Claire Mack. I communicated with her a little bit before ordering this deck because I had been interested in purchasing it, in part because very, very early on there was a kind of early bird special on the deck on Kickstarter, but I also found that Kickstarter was charging significantly more for the international shipping to get the deck to me than Etsy was calculating on her shop. So I had kind of reached out to ask, is there any way that I could get in on the early bird special but pay the shipping calculated as per Etsy? And Claire very, very graciously made that happen for me. It did make a big enough difference to bother with for me cost-wise. So thank you very much to Claire for that, and for just being an excellent, very quick communicator in general. It was a really nice process to bring this deck to me. So unlike the last unboxing that I did with Animal Allies Oracle, I've actually come prepared for the unboxing here with scissors. I've also just removed the deck from this mailing envelope that it came in. So setting that aside, the deck comes packaged in this green plastic, so we can get into that, and the envelope is padded with bubble wrap as well. Okay, so in addition to the deck, inside is just the business card here that says Claire Mack's Etsy website on it, the Illuminated Earth Oracle, and her contact information there as well. Oh, the light's doing something quite... Okay. So there's her card, and then the deck. And the deck comes here. It's not shrink wrapped at all. It's just on its own. The box is sturdy. It has the favorite feature finger inserts here to make it easy to open, and it's loose enough that it would be easy to open anyway, I think. So here's the cover of the deck here. So the text there is a gilded silver. Hard to get this to light really, really well. It's a gilded silver there. And then the back has 6 of the cards on it here. And the back reads, the Illuminated Earth Oracle. In this 63 card Oracle deck, artist Claire Mack combines vibrant hand-painted illustrations with concepts of the shared human experience. Here the beauty and mystery of the natural world serve as inspiration for both metaphysical and practical insights to guide you on your path of illumination. And then it has the illuminatedearthoracle.com, copyright Claire Mack 2018 there on the back, and it shows 6 cards. And one of the things that kind of had held me back from ordering this deck, to be honest, was the, we'll say like people cards. For me, to have a kind of earth themed or environment themed or nature based Oracle deck, I would prefer to not have such a preponderance of people in the deck personally, just personal choice. The cards are beautiful, just personal preference. But after having learned from watching Kelly at the Truth and Stories review of this deck, which I will also link below. Learning that there seemed to be only, I think, 12 cards that had people on it, and that the deck is a 63 card deck. Even if I took all 12 of the people cards out, if I wanted to, I would still have a very substantial deck to work with. So that kind of nudged me over the edge as well to order this deck, and it's beautiful, and I'm very glad I did. So 5 minutes in and the box is still closed. Unboxing. Oh, okay. There's goodies inside the box. This deck smells really good. And there's some cedar here. So this explains the deck not being shrink wrapped as well, because it means that it's been open to put these in, and I will keep those with the deck. I think that that's a really beautiful choice, and something that is on the Kickstarter for this deck right now. If you're interested in looking at that, you can order a signed deck plus botanical bundle as a reward, and it says that this will include a sweet bundle of botanicals gathered from the woods and garden around the Pacific Northwest home of the artist. So that's a really beautiful thing to offer, I think. Inside here that went flying is also just a small Illuminated Earth Oracle card here. And just with a little quick thank you message from Claire there on the back. So we'll put that over here. The deck comes with a guidebook. The guidebook is the same size as the cards. It has the Illuminated Earth Oracle in green there on the front. I really like a guidebook like this. If it's going to be a small guidebook, or a little white book, so to speak, this one has a colored cover. I really like when they fit and are the same size as the cards and just fit inside the box. Because when I store my decks, I either keep them in the box they came in, or I will make, from scratch, I will make a hard box like this to keep the deck in. And sometimes I also will make a bag with a drawstring to hold that inside. But I really like to use the packaging the decks come in when I can. It's just easier. It obviously suits the deck really well. And it's nice when everything is really kind of self-contained. So I really like that. And inside we have a little introduction to the deck. It says the Illuminated Earth Oracle is a hand-painted and collaged deck of 63 cards inspired by the essence of the natural world and its cycles. Each card is intuitively rendered to represent the symbolic joining of spirit and matter. For the seeker whose feet are on earth and soul is in the stars, this deck is offered for contemplation and transformation. How you use the oracle is up to you. You may draw one or more cards for daily insight, display them on an altar, or use them for inquiry about a specific subject. And then she's included a little quote from T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets. It says, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." So, nice little introduction there. And then it goes straight into the oracle. And for each of the cards, there's a short paragraph here. So each card has a keyword on it, and each keyword here in the text has a short paragraph. We'll read one, draw a card and read one at the end. And then we have a little section at the very back of the booklet called About the Art. And it goes through the kind of process of coming to want to create an oracle deck. And she notes the media that she uses. She writes that all of the cards are painted and collaged using a variety of mediums, vintage prints and hand marbled paper. It's a really unique kind of style, as we'll see. And she notes that the 12 cards depicting people are from paintings in my collection that hold special significance for me. They represent the human element, the mind and soul of the seeker here on Earth, whose journey is necessarily integrated with the planet and cosmos. And she notes that there's kind of, and this is something else that really appealed to me about this, there's a kind of suit system a little bit. So she notes that each card has one of 4 symbols incorporated into the border design, indicating a key of reference based on perceptions we may have about a given condition. And so there is the 4 symbols are here. Let's get that to show. There we go. So the top one, the circle with the cross in the middle, says origin, wholeness, completion, state of being. And then there are a positive association and a negative association. And then finally, a kind of starburst symbol that says intersection of matter with consciousness, human influence, choice. And then there's a brief little thank you there at the end. So that's the guidebook. It doesn't have page numbers in it, but it's it has a good amount for each card, I think. So we'll see what that looks like in a moment. The box, the inside of the box has a green, dark green paper on the inside, as does the bottom. Here's the cards. The edge is just the plain white there. The backs of the cards, so you can see the marbling is really beautiful. So they're not reversible for tarot. This is something I really look for, but for an oracle deck, this is just fine by me to have it not be reversible. They're really beautiful. They do have, and I would really prefer that this was not the case, they do have a copyright at the bottom on every card. Every single card has that copyright on the bottom. I am, I guess, glad that it's on the back and not on the front. That is definitely preferable. I would prefer if the copyright were just here on the back of the box, where it's also included, and I think on the guidebook as well it's included. But I will say that you can see that the copyright blends in quite well. It also doesn't, because the backs are not reversible anyway, it doesn't take away or detract from that at all. And it blends in enough, I think, that it's not particularly intrusive or something like this, but I would prefer that it wasn't there, personal preference. The deck is a matte finish. They feel really nice. They're quite sturdy. I am not a riffle shuffler. I'm not sure, this might be a difficult, they're quite, if you want to riffle shuffle, they might be a little bit stiff for that, but I don't riffle shuffle, so that's totally fine. But they feel sturdy. They clump a little bit with as a new deck will, but I think that they'll be nice to shuffle. So with that, with the deck open, I will turn the camera down onto the table and just go through and share kind of first impressions and flip through. Then we can come back up at the end, and I will shuffle, pull a card, and we can look at a meaning from the guidebook to get a sense of what that sounds like. Okay, so we'll go down to look at the cards. Okay, so here we are with the beautiful Illuminated Earth Oracle cards, 63 of them. So the first card here, and they've come alphabetized. So the first card we can see is Abundance. And so we can see here up at the top, I had mentioned that there were 4 kind of symbols or suits that would be incorporated into the border of each card. So up here we have the symbol for positive association, strength, fullness, accord are the keywords given for that. So the abundance is listed as a positive card, and we get here an abundant kind of, they look a little bit like amoebas to me, abundance of life there. So as we go through, I think I'm going to sort the cards into the 4 categories and see how many of each there are. So abundance is a positive association. The first of our people cards, accomplishment, and this is the intersection of matter with consciousness suit. So I suspect all of the people will be in this one, the human influence associated card. So you get the idea of pulling a rabbit out of a hat as having accomplished something perhaps with the circumstances working against you a little bit. So that kind of association, I think, makes sense to me. Accomplishment. And then we have air, and there are going to be all elements, suits, I'm sure. So in air, we have in the suit origin, wholeness, completion, or state of being suit. And the cards are really beautiful. They're hard to get on camera perfectly, but we get down here the elemental association for air there at the bottom. Oops, just bumping everything here. Anguish. So this one too is in the intersection of matter with consciousness, human influence, or choice, and is another card with a person. So you could imagine anguish potentially going into the negative association category, but instead it's in the human influence category there with the starburst up at the top. And it's really interesting that you get a real sense of kind of depth and texture with these cards that drew me to them. Really, really beautiful. So here we have attachment. And attachment again is in the human influence suit. This attachment, at first glance, strikes me as extremely negative. And I think attachment as a kind of keyword need not be negative. It might be a very good thing, I think, to be attached to something when that something is important, when that something is principles, when that something is, a loved one. Being attached can be great, but this kind of sense of real constricting here feels to be quite a negative sense of attachment to me. Balance, a very balanced card, I think, quite symmetrical, really beautiful kind of moon, water imagery there. Balance. Blocked. And so blocked, we get these stones that give the sense of a wall in your way. And this is the first card out of all of them so far that has the symbol for the negative association. So blocked, you can think about how some folks read reverse tarot cards as a kind of blocked energy, which again, I think a blocked, it need not necessarily be negative, but I can see why, the idea of being faced with a blockage like this would be put in the negative association category. So that makes sense to me. Childhood, another of the person cards, and you get it's a little bit Alice in Wonderland, clear reference here with the rabbit here in the left, and the idea of falling down the rabbit hole there. Childhood. And again, I very strongly suspect that I'm going to be taking the person cards out when I use this deck as a kind of nature-based oracle, but the art is beautiful for sure. Combustion. And so here combustion has a negative association to it, right? So we see the fire in the dark there, and it's interesting because to me, when I see this combustion, this picture, I would see a positive, a light in the dark, a campfire to keep warm at. It looks very much like a campfire to me. And of course, campfires can rage out of control and cause all kinds of damage and forest fires and so on, which would certainly be a negative association in lots of ways. But I don't get a sense of negativity from this card. Let's just read. I'm curious to read the guidebook here for combustion. The guidebook says, a burning flame provides warmth and light through the transformation of energy, but can be destructive if not carefully tended. Okay, so instincts were right on there. Consider the volatility of a given situation and take care to monitor the level of risk involved. Okay, so that makes sense as a kind of negative. Volatile, I think, has for me a more immediately negative tone than a word like combustion does. So that can make sense. Concealed. And this one is also a negative association as well. And you get the sense of kind of what's lurking below the surface, right? And the kind of immediately you think of tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot that we're not seeing here. And so there's something being concealed there. I feel like grammatically there's a part of me that wishes that it was concealment. But, you know, that's a minor, it's not even a criticism, just a thought. And concealed again is given a negative, which is interesting because when I think of concealment, you might think of something like the High Priestess card, right, and the veil, or you could think about mysteries as being something that's concealed, which I would not think of as negative. But certainly insofar as concealment means, you know, it implies some sort of dishonesty or something like this, sure, could be negative. Connection, listed as a positive association card, and we get here connection between land and sea and sky, and it's interesting that the birds are down here. And this is what looks like a reflection on the water to me, and a positive, really beautiful. Cosmos, so this one is going into the origin, wholeness, completion, state of being suit with the air and balance cards. Cosmos. I love that there's a rainbow there. It feels really expansive, as cosmos are. So beautiful. Trying to keep my piles organized over here off screen so that we can look at them later. Decay. And decay is listed as negative. This is one I never would have gotten the word decay if the title wasn't there. The card is beautiful. There's a sense of kind of seasonal change there. And again, you know, decay might sound like a negative association, but also you think about the ways that decaying plants in the forest and things are one of the things that are crucial for the new ones to emerge. So a lot of these cards, I think, could go either way. And I'm getting the sense that really these suits, as much as I like suits in an oracle deck, the suits are really maybe not something I'm going to use much or refer to much. I think the keywords are broad and rich enough that there's a lot of places to go without looking at positive or negative associations. Deluge is also listed as negative. And for me, I think deluge is immediately negative insofar as I've been getting a lot of rain where I live, and I've been very, checking my basement quite frequently to see if any water has gotten in. I've had this issue before with kind of great trepidation, hoping for the best. So far, so good. And so here, you know, deluge, with all the flooding that's been happening in Ontario and elsewhere in Quebec, the East Coast, deluge could feel negative, but deluge can wash away a lot of things, right? So, I mean, again, need not be negative at all. Destruction, also negative. I'm not surprised to see destruction characterized as negative. The anarchist in me thinks about destroying to create and creative disruption and things like this. So again, not necessarily negative, but I can definitely see why of the four suits that's where this one would get put. And destruction, you do almost get a sense of a forest fire in this image as well, coming to overtake these trees and forest in the background. Disguise. So here there's a person in what looks like a bear fur, perhaps, holding a fish. And disguise again, okay, I can confidently say that this starburst is on all of the cards that have people in them. So disguise is not given a positive or negative association for that reason. Dreams, which will go in the same suit as the elements have been going. That's really, really beautiful. Incredible. I'm not sure. There's these leaves at the bottom that are quite interesting. Earth, again going with the elements. This is a really interesting depiction of Earth. I'm not sure what to make of this piece up here at the top. I feel like it could be a lot of things. It looks like a coral or a fungus, perhaps. We'll have to read more about that. Read more about that one there. Epiphany. And Epiphany has the silhouette of a person, but is not in the suit that all the other people cards have gone so far. This is in a positive association. Epiphany. Really beautiful. Erosion. And erosion is a negative card here. So we see these kind of mesas of rock here that have been eroded down. The texture of these cards is impossible to really do justice to with this camera. They're incredible. Eruption. Also listed as negative. And I think for me, something like eruption, it's entirely a question of what exactly is doing the erupting, of whether it's going to be a positive or a negative card, right? We can imagine kind of an eruption of, I don't know, emotion, for example, could be a great thing if it's a moment of, releasing feelings that have been held back for a long time, but eruption could also be quite negative, so I can see why they would put it there. Evolution, and this goes in the kind of what I'll call the elemental suit. It looks like some perhaps coral there at the bottom to me. And fertility. And so we get the silhouette of the pregnant belly there. I will say as an aside, something that I really do not like in tarot decks is a pregnant empress. It really is not something that resonates with me, and I feel not entirely positive about the very frequent depiction of feminine associated creativity in this way. I feel like it can be biologically essentialist, it can be profoundly reductive, in ways that I find quite problematic because of the frequency of it. But here as fertility, I'm not against depictions of pregnancy in general. And for fertility, I think it works beautifully. There's no gendered associations, it seems like, in any of these cards for me. And you get the sense of the fertility of this growing crop as well in the background. Really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Fire in the elemental suit, and this must be Mars, right, for sure. Let me get the fire symbols down here. Gifts, and gifts is a positive association. Of course, who doesn't love to receive a gift? Especially when here we see, a gift of crystals is a great gift to receive. I think one of my favorite gifts to receive. So Very beautiful, and we can also think of gifts as, here they're kind of gifts from the earth, right? In the Illuminated Earth Oracle. So a positive association card. Grief, a negative association card. See, howling at the moon in grief here. Harmony. Again, I really like all the rainbows in this deck. They make me just very, very happy. That's a positive association. Harmony. Here, healing. I'm not quite sure what to make of this one. I'm not sure. We have a ship in the background. This person perhaps has some bandages on there, so there's healing. In that sense, I'll have to sit with this one a little bit more, I think. Influence. And so here we get, I think, for me, what comes up immediately is kind of the idea of astrology and the influence of the macro on the micro, or as above, so below, right? It's kind of premises that astrology and so many other kind of systems are based on. And here in influence, we have it associated as a negative. And again, I think with these keywords being so broad, of course we can think of someone or something being a positive influence or a negative influence, right? And so it's hard for me to square the depiction of what immediately for me calls to mind astrology as a negative influence. I really don't think of it that way. But I really like the card for sure. Meander. We have a winding path into the distance. And meander is listed as a positive card. Perhaps taking the scenic route. I could talk about these cards for a really long time, and I already have. And I'm not very far through the pile, so maybe we'll try to be a little bit more efficient here. Memory. This is one of the first cards with the people on it that I had seen. Memory. Moon. Beautiful. The 18 in my Aquamarine 18 name is a reference to the moon, which is my zodiac associated card as a Pisces. I love the moon very much. Work with the moon cycles, and this is a beautiful depiction of moon for sure. Multiverse. Amazing. It kind of looks like water and space at the same time, which I'm really into. Mystery. Mystery is also in the origin, wholeness, completion state of being. So mystery here is not associated as a negative or a positive. You could think of it perhaps going either way, but here it's been put in neither. Obstacle. So here, instead of the blocked wall of rocks, we get one big rock for an obstacle. And again, it is a negative association there. Path. This looks like, this to me at the bottom actually looks like clothes on a clothesline. To me. But we see a path going off into the distance. There. There's a yin and yang there. And path is shown as a positive. Again, you know, it entirely depends whether it's the path you want to be on or not, whether it's positive or negative, but path is listed as a positive card. Patience, also listed as positive. And I like the inclusion of crystals here for patience. Since, you know, crystals take so long to form, the association with patience makes sense. Phenomenon. What a good word. It could be just about anything. Really beautiful. Plants. And this goes in the same suit with the elements. And we get a sense of growth and abundance here. Lots of course, greenery. And here again, this is a bit like what was on the earth card. So perhaps that is some sort of plant matter, right? Potential. Also listed as a positive. Potential, you get a sense of potential for growth, certainly. Productivity. Here also listed as a positive. I think often working with animal oracles, you often see something like productivity associated with bees. And I've learned that the honeycomb, the 6 sides of the honeycomb is the shape that will hold the most with the least amount of materials because of how they interlock like this, right? So it's a very productive way of constructing. Really beautiful. Protection. So here we have a person holding a baby goat, I suppose, perhaps in a protective way. Reflection. That's an interesting one because with the circle in the background, you almost get the sense of a mirror, but not necessarily. There's also just a sense of maybe taking time to reflect, I suppose. Reincarnation. We have a labyrinth kind of pattern there, and this is in the elemental suit as well. I like that as a card to include, reincarnation. Relationship, and relationship is listed as positive. And here we have kind of a stone and flint, perhaps, making fire together. And again, relationship isn't a term that I necessarily think of as positive either, but you know, I understand the rationale there. Release, also listed as a positive card. The colors on this one are fantastic. The blues and greens and purples. A lot of my favorite jewel tone colors in this deck. We're getting to the end. Renewal, a positive association card. Resilience. Resilience is my word of the year that I wrote in for my word of the year in my Metaphysician's Day Planner. So I will be sitting with this one, I'm sure, to think about that. And it's positive. Resistance is here listed as a negative, and you get the sense of these two stones pushing against each other. And for me, I mean, when I think of and use the word resistance, for me, that's a really positive word. Because I think there's a lot, right, in the world that I want to resist, that I want to struggle against. And so resistance for me is a very positive and powerful word most of the time that I use it. Responsibility. It's a little bit, I don't know what to make here about the human having horns and the deer doesn't. I might feel ways about that. I'll have to think about that one. If I use the people cards, which I'm still leaning towards not. Retreat. And retreat is listed as a negative, actually. Retreat. This depiction gives me the sense of falling down a hole, which is not something I think of when I think of retreat, but beautiful, beautiful. They're all so beautiful. I could say that over and over. Separate, or separate, I guess. I'll say separate. Also negative, and we get a sense of layers, striations, perhaps layers of earth, right? Again, a term that could really go positive or negative for me. Source. Really beautiful. Stillness. And stillness here is a positive. Could be positive or negative, depending on whether you want to be still or not. Still can turn into stuck, right? Structure. Listed as positive. Support. I don't know about this one either. The hands kind of coming from behind, and then the covered mouth gives almost to me a sense of surprise or not entirely happy about those hands being there, which I find hard to think about in terms of support, but I have to think about that one a bit more. Tempest. And Tempest is a negative card, and we very much get the storm of the lightning here. And Tempest is, of course, a tragedy. Transient. And transient is listed as a positive association, and we get the moon cycles here as a kind of symbolizing movement and not staying in one place for very long. Underworld, which goes into the elements suit. And this actually reminds me a little bit, in the Anima Mundi Tarot, one of my favorites, the Death card is a snake that is shedding. There we go. Snake that is shedding. Say that 3 times fast. And this card reminds me of that. Upheaval. Upheaval listed as a negative. This one reminds me of the Tower card very much. And we get this this little family of animals here down at the bottom that perhaps has been separated by the upheaval, the split in the earth. So in this sense, it's being placed in the negative association. Makes sense. Sudden separation. Vulnerability. And vulnerability is listed as a positive, and I really like that it is. That's something that I've been kind of working on and thinking a lot about. The idea of vulnerability as a potentially positive state to be in. Water, finally, to go into the elements suit. Really beautiful. Again, I love the rainbow that you get when you refract through the water there. And finally, the last card is wisdom. And wisdom here is again a positive card. And again, I guess really beautiful. I feel like I've said that about every card so far. So that is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. I am going to count up how many cards I have in each of my four piles that I've been making. I'm going to turn the camera back up.
And I'm going to wrap up this
give the
video
deck a
quickly
shuffle,
because
and
Daryl is getting a little bit
for the day.
loud. It's almost time for FOOD, which is his favorite thing in the whole world. So he's becoming a little bit impatient with me. So I've counted up the 4 suits in this deck, or 4 categories of cards, and what I've found is that the suit labeled Origin, Wholeness, Completion, State of Being, which has the cards of the elements in it, as well as cards like Underworld, Source, Reincarnation, Plants, Mystery, Moon, and so on, has 16 cards. The suit that is dedicated to the kind of people cards, called Intersection of Matter with Consciousness, Human Influence, Choice, has 12. So this would be the cards I think that Claire is referring to when she says there's 12 people cards in the deck. So these are words like support, responsibility, reflection, disguise, childhood, and so on. Interestingly, that 12 does not include one card additionally, which is the Epiphany card, which very clearly depicts a person. It's a silhouette, obviously, but it is clearly a human depiction there. But that one is not in the person grouping. This one is in the positive association, strength, fullness, or accord grouping of cards. And this is the biggest group of cards, actually. So the positive association suit has 19 cards in it, whereas the negative association conflict, absence, or challenges suit has only 16. So there's actually more negative than positive, as the artist has demarcated the boundaries between those classifications. But as I found when I was walking through the deck for the first time, I think that a lot of the cards could really go in either direction, some more than others. I mean, I think that generally something like a blocked or blockage or obstacle, were one to make a classification, would quite readily put into the negative. Whereas something like resistance for me, or even upheaval, or certainly influence with the astrological depiction, I would be much less ready to just put into negative. So I think there's really quite a range in this deck, and I like when an oracle deck feels relatively balanced. I don't have many, if any, kind of affirmation decks. I look usually for something that is more of a balanced deck, or very predominantly my oracle decks are animal decks, which I think for me are just kind of automatically balanced in a sense. I think animals don't necessarily denote a affirmation, positive, happy, or negative or threatening necessarily either way. They're animals. They are what they are. So I don't think of those in that way. So what we could do is to finish is to just give the deck a shuffle, and it shuffles really easily. And I am a strictly overhand shuffler. I am also, besides tarot and oracle, an enthusiast for card games. My partner and I play cribbage all the time. I like to play poker. I like to play euchre. And then I'm a riffle shuffler when I'm playing card games. But I think because of that, it feels almost a little bit strange to riffle shuffle tarot and oracle decks. It's like, you're not playing cribbage. You know? Stop shuffling like you're playing cribbage is kind of what goes through my mind. So I'm always an overhand shuffler. And these shuffle very, very well. And I think they're a good sturdiness for me. They clump a tiny, tiny bit, but with I found the new matte finish decks, and matte is very much my preference, that the matte decks often stick a little bit from the outset. So we could ask for a message from the Illuminated Earth Oracle for the day, May 2nd, to think about today. And the card that I'm going to pull out as I cut the deck, 2, 3, 4. The one that I showed most recently, Epiphany. So we see the silhouette of a person there. It almost looks a little bit like it could be a child, though not necessarily. Someone sitting reflexively. And we think of the star as providing guidance, right? Or we could also think of the idea of an epiphany as a spark going off, right? Or a light bulb going on, even over the head there. So we have Epiphany, a positive card to end the time together on. And we'll just see what the guidebook has for us. And the guidebook's entries are alphabetized, so they're easy to find without page numbers and so on. So Epiphany, what we have is, aspects of our lives may suddenly be revealed to us, illuminating what was there all along. One of the greatest revelations we can have is to discover the answers to our questions are always within us. Trust your inner wisdom to show you the way. What a great sentiment to end on. So thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.